So, I have been really interested in residential or long-term cruising, as you might know if you've been following my channel. So, I just recently got back from a month-long Transpacific cruise, and I thought I would make a video about my thoughts on what I now think about it, because I'd never been on a long cruise before that. I had been on a couple of back-to-backs, but never anything more than a couple of weeks. So yeah, this was an opportunity for me to see what, a longer cruise would be like, and whether I would actually really like to live on a cruise ship, or is it just, going on holiday and thinking, oh, I love this, I want to do this forever kind of thing. So let me take some time to tell you what I think about it. So I just got back from this Trans-Pacific cruise. So we went to Japan and Alaska. So we went from Brisbane in Australia across to Seattle, and we stopped a number of ports in Japan and then a number of ports in Alaska before arriving in Seattle. We then hired a car actually and went up to Canada and went around British Columbia and back down to Seattle through Washington State. So I'll also talk about the differences between being on the cruise and traveling around by car as well. So I've been putting up some port videos, so do check out my channel if you're interested in seeing what I got up to. Also putting up some ship videos, so tours of the ship, cabin, food I'll do a video on. So if you are interested in any of that, please like and subscribe so that you will get to see those videos first. So initially, what were my first thoughts about it? What did I expect and what was the reality? I did think that I'd be quite bored. That was something I was quite worried about. I have done a video before we went where I actually sort of got into a bit of panic thinking, oh my God, it's going to be so boring. We had like 10 sea days or something at the beginning, and then quite a number of sea days between Japan and Alaska as well. And I was like, oh, what are we going to do? Is it just going to be endless rounds of trivia and towel folding? And, what am I going to do? So the reality of that was I wasn't bored at all. And because it was a Trans-Pacific, there was a number of talks on. I do like education and talks and learning things. So in particular, there was Jessie, who's a marine biologist on the ship. She was fascinating. So she did a talk most mornings. So it started off like talking about the Great Barrier Reef and then moving on to talking about Alaskan sea life. Also on the trip between Brisbane and Japan, we had these two Japanese women on who gave us lots of talks about Japan. They did a Japanese language course. They did traditional clothing, dance. So they were really interesting, really lovely women. So that was really enjoyable as well. So that kept us quite busy, along with, going for walks on deck, using the gym. And eating, of course, it was a cruise ship, yet I did eat my weight in food. Actually, I wasn't too bad, but, it's so enjoyable. One of my favorite things is, not having to cook or worry about what I'm going to eat, really. You just go into the restaurant and choose what you like to eat. So, yeah, a lot of the day was, made up with eating. So getting breakfast and getting lunch and getting dinner. So there was a lot of entertainment on the ship. The cruise director, Zach, was pretty good, and so was his fun squad. Not probably the best I've had, but they were good. And I have put up a video, actually a very funny video of Zach and Aubrey, one of the fun squad, trying Vegemite. That was in the Wave Morning show, which they do on a lot of the Carnival cruise ships. This wasn't every day, but it was quite regular throughout the ships. It's sort of like a morning chat show that's done in the theatre, but it's also broadcast onto the TV screens in the cabins and onto the big screen on the Lido deck if you don't want to go up to the theatre for it. Yeah, I did think it was going to be quite repetitive, like going on a lot of back-to-backs, where you may be going to the same places. So when I've done back-to-backs, I haven't. Lucky in Australia that we do have a number of places to go on cruises from, even from one port. So when I have done back-to-backs, I haven't actually been going to the same ports, but everything, the menu, the entertainment, everything just resets for each cruise. And so I thought it might be a bit like that, but they were really good at not doing that. And like the menu was different really every single night. Like there were a couple of dishes that were the same, but overall the menus were different every night. Entertainment was different every night. They really did make it a lot more interesting for us than I thought that they would. I was really impressed by that. I thought that I would miss my friends and family and my cat. And yes, I did. I didn't have full internet. I had bought a 10 gigabyte GigSky eSIM. I have done a video on GigSky and I'll link that down below for you. It's well worth it if you don't want to pay the price for full internet and you're not going to use that much internet. The thing was that I found was that I obviously was then just trying to not use it a lot. I did phone my kids and I did have a video call with my daughter, but yeah, I did miss my family and my pets. And one thing I did have is we have a camera in the apartment where I am with my daughter and the cat, and I did turn that on a couple of times. When no one was home, when she was away, I turned it on and had a little look at her. Every time I turn it on, she'd come running from wherever she was, so obviously it must make a whirring sound or something when it turns on that she can hear, and confuse her by calling out her name. But anyway, that was good to be able to see her for a little bit, so I did enjoy that. But yeah, I missed my putty cat cuddles and I missed seeing my family. So yeah, that's one to really think about. If I could do it more long term, I'm not sure. So daily life on board. So it really was pretty easy to just get into the whole daily life on board thing. Oh my God, like since I came back, even taking the rubbish to the bin was like, oh my God, why is somebody not coming and emptying my bin for me? You very quickly become acclimatized to, not cooking, not cleaning, whatever routine you get into. We had a daily routine, you get up, have breakfast, have a shower first, wash my hair because I do that every day. Then have breakfast, then go to the morning lecture, then go for a walk on deck, then go to lunch generally, and then in the afternoon maybe go to another lecture. Like they had a cartoonist doing some workshops about drawing and stuff. I went to a few of those, or just for another walk around the ship. So yeah, there was plenty to do. There was trivia, there's bingo if you do that. I don't do bingo, but a lot of people do. Obviously there were a lot of people in the casino. I don't do casinos. So it wasn't a casino elite cruise, so there were a lot of people gambling. That was the only thing that was kind of a real... I knew about it, so it wasn't a real shock, but it sort of was in Australia, there's no smoking inside the ship at all. And because this was a US cruise, it was in US dollars, which was not great for us with the terrible exchange rate, but also there was smoking in the casino. And it's kind of hard to get to like the Ocean Plaza and the ground floor of the theatre. You had to kind of think about it, because otherwise you'd end up walking. If you went down to level 2, you'd have to walk through the casino to get to them. But if you wanted to go to the Ocean Plaza, you could walk through on level 3 all the way to the theatre, go down and then go back into the plaza from the back of it. I'm asthmatic, so I was quite sensitive to the smoke. So that was one thing that, whilst I knew it was going to happen, I didn't expect that it would actually bother me as much as it did. I think a lot of people made a lot of really good friendships on it. I can imagine they did. We didn't. I don't really know why I don't know. It was a fairly quiet cruise. We did start off sharing tables. We did meet a lot of people, and people that you'd chat to as you saw them around the ship, but never really anybody that we met up with more than once. I don't really know why, because I quite often do meet people on cruises. There were a lot of friendships and groups that got together. There were groups that, there was a knitting group, and a lot of people playing different games and stuff like that, that obviously spent a lot of time together. I don't really know why we didn't. I really did just chill a lot on this cruise, and that was something I really wanted to do, and it was something I worried I wouldn't do, but I did. I made sure that, every afternoon pretty much I would sit and read my book, maybe on the balcony at the beginning when the weather was nice, or just in the cabin or somewhere around the ship, and just kind of really chill out and have a break. So yeah, I think it probably was quite easy to make friends if you wanted to and be social, but as I say, we just really didn't on this cruise particularly, other than just chatting to people at dinner time, or, as you went around the ship and saw people that you knew. So, did it become like home? Yeah, it did. The cabin did feel quite like home by the end. The cabins are small. I mean, that's the only thing. I don't know if I could live in a cabin. I could maybe do it on my own, like if I had all the storage to myself and all the room to myself. Living in one small room with someone else is probably too much for me. I am a bit introverted. I do like my own space, and I do like everything to be in its own place. So yeah, I don't know if I could share a cabin long term with someone else. The space on my own probably wouldn't bother me. I actually do like living small, and I am currently living in a fairly small apartment while I'm in Melbourne, away from our family home in Sydney. So, I love it. I absolutely love not having a lot of things and clutter and stuff. So yeah, that wouldn't bother me too much. And, everything, we had places for things, and yeah, it did become like home. And, especially the fact that we didn't have to clean it or make our beds or anything like that. What did I miss from home? Probably nothing really. Obviously other than my family and my cat, but no, not really. I guess I like having things, probably, the bathroom. I don't know, the bathroom was fine actually. I guess I don't think I ever actually felt like I missed something, but I'm sure over a period of time there would be. But then I guess you would just start buying those kind of things if you were living on there for a longer period of time. Obviously, if you were not on like a residential cruise ship like Villa V or something like that where you're living on there, obviously if you're having to move your luggage around between ships, then that wouldn't be possible. And I guess there would be things that you might miss. Probably the biggest thing is not having to think about what to do. I used to check the weather. Now I just expect the captain or the cruise director to be making an announcement and telling me what the weather is, what's on, where I'm supposed to go. It's strange to come back to the real world where you're going to make every decision for yourself and look things up and, what do I wear today? Oh, I have to actually find out what the weather is. And, the captain's not going to tell me where I am in the world. And that was actually very helpful, though. It was really good that he would tell us where we are, because otherwise you'd have no idea after a few days, well, a week or so, we had no idea where we were. So yeah, I'd rather got used to the disembodied voices, and I don't know, maybe I need to get a talking parrot or something so that I'm used to having a little disembodied voice in my apartment talking to me. So food, I'm sure that's probably a big question people have. The food was pretty good. It was cruise ship food. It was Carnival. It wasn't, amazing fine dining, but it was pretty good. We did eat in the paid steakhouse on the first night, which was nice, but we didn't feel the need to go back. The food was fine. So we did eat in the dining room every night. We had anytime dining. So we would just book in on the app and then go whenever we wanted. So there was something that I could eat every night. There was a little stage when we first got to Japan where the food went really salty. It's something I found on Royal Caribbean as well. I think it's like a sort of American thing maybe. I don't know if people complain, because say for 2 nights the sauces, I couldn't eat the sauces. They were really salty and horrible, but then it got fixed. So I don't know why, but like that, the food improved. So I find the food fine. I'm not expecting amazing food. We did eat breakfast up in the buffet some days, you can get omelettes made or fried eggs. I'm not expecting anything more than I'd have at home. So, and have someone make me an omelette in the morning is certainly more than I'm going to do at home. So, yeah, the food was fine. It was better than I expected. I really thought, because normally they have like a 7-day menu that they just keep rehashing from the beginning of each cruise. So I kind of thought that it would be something like that. And I thought the menus would be very similar, and then sort of halfway through would change to American menus and they'd be different. But they didn't. They mixed them up. And as I say, there was 1 or 2 dishes that was the same, but in general, all the menus were different every single night. So I was really impressed by that. It was mostly brunch, so Carnival does a thing where they either do a sea day brunch or breakfast and lunch. Very rarely was there the breakfast and lunch, though in reality I couldn't really eat 2 restaurant meals for breakfast and then lunch. So that didn't really bother me that much. So lunchtime we would just go up to the buffet if it was a brunch day, and we'd had breakfast in the restaurant or up in the buffet and had like an omelette or scrambled eggs. And then for lunch there is a number of eateries up there. I will do another video on the food, and so keep an eye out for that one because I will talk about all the different food that was available. But there's like eateries, like there's an Asian eatery, Chopsticks, there's pizza, there's a deli doing sandwiches, the general buffet, a hamburger place, and a tacos place. On a previous cruise on Luminosa, I really loved the burritos and tacos place. I actually only went there once this cruise and it was really salty. I couldn't really eat it. I can't eat really salty food, so I didn't go back. I don't know if it was the end of the meat, and maybe if I'd gone again and the meat tray was fresher, it might not have been so bad. But anyway, I didn't really enjoy that this time. And we did eat at Chopsticks quite a lot. Their little fried dumpling things, absolutely the best. I remember them from the last time I'd been on Luminosa. I've not had them on other Carnival ships. Absolutely, yeah, the best thing. But quite often I just have a soup. So there would be a soup at the main buffet and a soup at Chopsticks. So if I wanted something light, I'd just have a soup, maybe a little bit of some rice or something with that if I was feeling a little bit more peckish. So yeah, lunch was fine. For me, I was quite happy with the food. I actually found the buffet food pretty good. For a cruise ship buffet, the food was, okay. Like, there was good curries at it. So I did have the curry a couple of times. Yeah, it was okay. Oh, and there was a barbecue. We don't really eat there. I did have a bit of meat there one day, which I had with a roll, so that was nice. But yeah, so the food was fine and much better than I expected, much more variety. I really enjoyed it actually. So yeah, it's a shocker to have to come back and think about what you're going to eat. I think more than even the cooking, it's the planning, and I can go to the supermarket and I can just wander around and go, oh, nothing really appeals. Whereas when you're given a menu and you're told these are the 5 things that you can have, you choose, the one that most appeals to you, and it makes it so easy. Even like going up to the Lido at lunchtime, you walk around and just go, oh yeah, okay, that appeals, and then that's what you eat. One thing I did find was that because we were on there so long, I was less likely to overeat. I didn't really, feel like I had to try everything, eat this, eat that, so I did eat a lot less and probably a lot more like I would at home. And also because we were on there so long, I was more likely to try the food in port, like for something different. You didn't sort of ever think, oh, well, I'll be back on the ship in a bit, like especially in Japan, because as I've said in my Japanese videos, we just loved going to the convenience stores and grabbing something to eat and trying the local foods. So financial. So we got quite a good deal on it. I think even if you pay full price, it's well worth it. When everything's included, all your food, your accommodation, it was certainly much cheaper. I think we spent, as much in the time, that week and a half that we had afterwards in Canada and America than we did on the whole cruise for the month beforehand. So financially, it was very viable, and I could imagine spending quite a lot of time, one day when I retire, spending quite a lot of time on cruise ships for that. And, if I could get some of these longer ones, I definitely would do that. The only thing financially was internet. I think I underestimated how much that I would want the internet. Say I had 10 gigabytes and that was fine. Like it was fine. I could do everything I needed to do my New York Times games in the morning, you know, contact the family, do a little bit of Facebook or Instagram scrolling, but I couldn't back up my photos. So that was a bit of a pain. So I was just using a little disk to back them up, as well as an SD card. But because I did have to keep backing up like the videos I took and everything, I had to back those up to get them off my phone so that I had enough room on my phone. So yeah, not having everything just automatically backed up for my photos was a bit of annoying. And I don't know, just feeling like you couldn't download a movie or, you know, watch YouTube or something like that. Like I hardly watched anything on YouTube. I found it, yeah, it made me feel a little isolated, I think. So I was lucky. My partner, he did have internet. So he had it paid for by his work because he had to work. He worked for like most of the first week we were on there. So we did have that option. So I could use that. So that was a backup, but I didn't really. And as I say, the 10 gigabytes that I had for the month was fine. But yeah, I did find it a bit isolating not having internet, but that was a really large extra cost if you're going to buy the plan for the whole month. So yeah, drinks. We didn't have a drinks package or anything. We didn't actually drink that much on the cruise. I think when you got, 29 nights out in front of you, you know you're not going to be drinking every night. I didn't even, have a glass of wine with dinner every night. So we had a couple of nights where we had a few drinks, or a few nights, but yeah, so that wasn't a big expense. It was no more than if we were at home. So yeah, I think that's something to think about with some of the things that you spend. What would you spend at home? And if it's comparable, then obviously it's no different. If you are thinking about this as a long-term way of living, and here comes my cat. She is wanting to eat my microphone. And if you are thinking about it as a long-term way of living, then obviously you've got to factor these things in and not just think that your cruise cost is going to be the whole cost. As we did one meal in the steakhouse. We just did the first night where you get a free bottle of wine, so that seemed worth doing. I quite like the food up there. So my husband had never been to the steakhouse on Carnival, so, we thought we'd do that. So not really a lot of extra costs. We probably did spend more at ports than maybe I thought we would. I don't know. We did use public transport in general. We chose what we wanted to see, but it wasn't too bad because we didn't have that many ports. But if you were doing it and going to different places a lot more, I'm thinking like Villa V, where they do spend a lot of time in port. They're going somewhere new all the time. That I think I would have to really think about how much budget I would have for excursions and going places, because I think that could get really expensive really quickly. If everywhere you went, there was a museum that you wanted to go to or a tower you wanted to go up, all these things add up. So yeah, that would be something to think about. So health and well-being. So this was one of the major things that I came up with when I did the video about Villa V, was health. And coming back, it still would be my major worry. I mean, I know there is a doctor on board, and there was a doctor on board the Carnival ship, but it's quite expensive to go and see them. And I did get sick and had like a respiratory infection. I'm asthmatic. I did end up with a bit of a chest infection that normally I probably would have got to the point where I would have gone to see the doctor to see if I needed antibiotics for it. I didn't. So yeah, I think not being able to go and see the doctor, and dental. I did have a toothache. That was when we were in Canada, but I had to wait till we got back to go to the dentist and get antibiotics for that. So yeah, I think the health thing would be one of my biggest worries about long-term cruising. And it's something that's made me think that, I would maybe, still really like to do a lot of cruising, like in retirement, but I would only probably do, maybe 3 weeks out of a month or something like that. So you'd have a week to go back and, sort out everything, get grounded, go to the doctors if you needed to, anything like that. So I think it is a real concern for long-term cruising to think about, especially, as you get older and maybe have some health issues. I mean, I only have asthma. That's the only thing that I have, and it's well controlled generally. I also nearly ran out on my inhaler. I took extra when I was sick, and so then I hadn't quite counted for that. So, just things like that. Like, I think health is something to think about if you're going to do long-term cruising. And emotionally, so, well, I was pretty relaxed, so it probably was really good for my mental health. But there was just this feeling of kind of being a little bit lost. Like, we never knew quite what day of the week it was or where we were. And I don't know if you were on there for a long time, whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. Like, I felt a little ungrounded, I think, not sort of having... Whilst I had my new routine, I didn't have a weekly routine, that you go to work and you go to the supermarket on a certain day, and I do need that kind of routine to feel mentally healthy. So that feeling of not really knowing where you are and what you're doing, but I think I'd probably get used to it. I mean, I did over the month and just kind of went with the flow. So I'm not really sure about that one. So port days and travel fatigue was another thing I thought about. So we didn't have that many port days, so it wasn't so bad. Mostly we had a day in between. We only had 2 times. There was 2 ports in Japan that were back to back and 2 ports in Alaska that were back to back. So otherwise we did have a sea day in between, and we did have lots of sea days. So I shouldn't really, be able to complain about any kind of fatigue, but it was a lot. Like, when we got back and people were like, oh, what was the best part? And it's like, oh my God, I've been so many places, I'm not even sure if I can remember where they were. I have to look back on photos and go, oh yeah, we did that, or we did that. So also this channel is really good for that. Like, I'll enjoy looking back on the videos that I make of each of the ports to remind me of what we did. So as well as being hopefully informative for people who watch them to know what they could do in these ports, but also as sort of a memory thing. That's part of why I'm doing this. But, there is the thought you can't not get off, like, you're not going to miss somewhere you've never been. Well, I wouldn't. FOMO would really hit in there, and I'd be really upset if I missed something. So there was this feeling that each port, I looked to see what to do. I had a big long list of things to do. So I just felt like I had to do all these things, or otherwise I was going to be disappointed. Like I was a little bit in Tokyo, that, we couldn't do Tokyo in one day. And I felt that maybe we had chosen some of the wrong things, that, we veered from the plan that I had. And so I didn't get to see do some of the things that I wanted to do. So I felt a bit disappointed. So I think it is tiring that, you want to see all these places and do all these things. And as I said before, it's also quite expensive. So that is something to think about. I think, a lot of people living on cruise ships, they're just doing back-to-backs of the same places. So that's probably the opposite. You might have favorite places that you'll go and have lunch or something in a port, but in reality, you're not going to go and see a lot of things once you've been to the port 10 times or something. So I guess that's a different way of doing it. But thinking of something like Villa V, which, I was quite keen on, I think I'd find it quite exhausting, continuously going to new places and researching where to go and seeing new things, and feeling that I had to see things that I wanted to see, or otherwise I was going to miss out. So we did do car-based travel. Just after we got back to Seattle, we went straight and hired a car, and we went up to Canada. We went around British Columbia, so we went to a number of places. We went to Kelowna, Hope, Vancouver, then up to Squamish and Whistler, and then over to Vancouver Island down to Victoria before getting the ferry back over to Port Angeles. Yeah, so that was another different type of tiring. It was actually more tiring because every day was something new. We had a limited amount of time, so we didn't, sort of feel like you could have a day doing nothing. And I'm not sure what I would do if I had a day to do nothing. I mean, I guess, maybe space things out. So go out in the morning, do the things you want to do in the morning, and then just, do what I was doing on the cruise ship in the afternoon, just, read my book or watch some TV or something. But because there were so many places to see, it doesn't matter how long you had, there would be somewhere else to go to. Canada and the US are massive, so there would always be somewhere new to go. So you didn't want to be wasting your time. So that was, more tiring. So yes, on that comparison, I would prefer the cruise ship where you do have sea days and down days where you're not doing anything. Yes, we did have days where we were driving, or half days where we were driving, but that in itself, to me, is quite stressful in comparison to being on a cruise ship. Obviously, driving, you're confined into the car, and it's very different than being on a cruise ship. So yeah, I would definitely prefer cruising to see a lot of places than driving around. But obviously, with the driving around, we could tailor it to what we wanted to see. We could stay longer in places, less time in places. When something, took a fancy, we could spend time there. So like even the first day, we were going to go straight up to Vancouver when we hired the car, and we went to the Museum of Flight in Seattle. I highly, highly recommend this museum if you're at all interested in space or flight. I hadn't realized how good it would be, or really that it had a whole lot of space stuff in it, and I'm a bit of a space geek. So we ended up spending the whole day there. We got there at like 11. We left at 6:30 because it was they had an open evening. And so we didn't end up going up to Vancouver, and we just stayed somewhere on the way up in Bellingham. So yeah, so like to be able to just change things like that and change our plans, because we weren't booking any accommodation until the day of, though we then hadn't booked anything in Canada for the first day. I highly recommend, if you're going to cross a border, that you've already booked something. Because we changed our plans, we hadn't booked anything. But yeah, it would help a lot going across the border if you have accommodation. That was one of the things that they obviously weren't that happy with. I mean, it was fine. We didn't have any problems, other than there was just a massive queue to cross the border. But other than that, it was fine. So only booking accommodation at the last minute. I mean, those had good and bad points. Obviously, we got some good deals. We just went through booking.com. Generally, I looked a few of the places to book them separately, on their own websites if they had one, but it was actually always cheaper through booking.com and easier. Was happy with everywhere we booked, actually, so we were really lucky. There was nowhere we didn't like that was horrible or anything like that. We did only really go for things that had a reasonable rating, sort of, generally 8 or higher, but we were going on the budget kind of end of places to stay, but we stayed some great places, from sort of an Airbnb overlooking a lake to some great hotels. So yeah, we could get some bargains by booking later, but obviously there was like one place I'd looked at one point, found somewhere to stay, and then when I went back about half an hour later to book it, it was gone. So, that is a problem, that obviously you've got less options when you're booking last minute, but we just wanted to keep everything so we could just make a decision where we were going, on the day, whether we liked it or not. Like, we got to Squamish, really liked where we were staying, liked the town. We wanted to go up to Whistler, so instead of booking somewhere up in Whistler, we just booked a second night once we'd got there in where we were staying in Squamish, and just drove up to Whistler for the day, which was a really great decision. I'll do a video on that so you can see why I thought that. But yeah, I mean, Whistler was nice, but I'm glad we didn't stay there. So what surprised me the most? So as I said, not being bored. I really thought that I would find all those sea days boring and that I just ended up doing rounds of trivia. I actually didn't do trivia. My daughter, who I cruise with a lot, was absolutely shocked because we always do trivia, and I didn't go to a single trivia. I did stand at the back of a couple of them, and, but missed, doing the whole thing. So, yeah, not being bored was definitely one of the things that surprised me. And just how easy it was to fall into a different lifestyle and get your own routine going. And yeah, so that's why I think it would be quite easy to do this long term, that you do just kind of get into a routine and yeah, it became like normal life after a short period of time. So yeah, I could see doing it long term in that way. So yeah, they were definitely positives that surprised me. And the one thing that I wish I'd known before I went was that I would feel this disconnect by not having internet. I must say, I did even have internet. So I don't know how people who don't have any internet manage, but just not feeling like you were connected to the world all the time. I don't know, I'm sure it's a good thing. Everyone tells you to disconnect. But yeah, I did find it a little bit weird. So that was something I was kind of surprised about. And I don't think I'd do it differently. And I don't even know if I had full internet, how much different it would have been. As I say, the main thing was that my photos weren't being backed up. And I had to spend, 20 minutes a day backing up my own photos. So I don't know. But yeah, I just felt this sort of disconnect from the world, which I think I would have felt anyway. So I think probably wasn't just the internet. It was being away from my family, being in different time zones. So, not being able to contact them all the time. I haven't been away from my kids for that period of time before, and not being able to answer any questions they had sort of immediately, that kind of thing. So yeah, that was probably the most surprising challenge that I had on the cruise. So this wasn't just a cruise, this was a floating lifestyle experiment. And would I go and do longer term cruising again? I would certainly do like a month long, 2 month, 3 month long cruise. 100%. Offer me one for tomorrow, I'd be on the ship. Actually, probably not tomorrow because I'm going to China next week. So yeah, I am going to China next week. So there'll be some videos about that trip up as well. So if you're interested on that one, do subscribe. But yeah, I would definitely do long cruises again. I loved it. Would I do residential cruising like Villa V / the world if, suddenly I won the lottery? Not that I play it, so I'm probably not going to. But maybe. I think that's a maybe. I think the issues that I thought would be issues for me, so family, healthcare, my cat, or any kind of pet, and she's just come here again to say hello. They were things that I had thought about when I did the Villa V video, and they did turn out to be things that were concerns for me. So I don't know, I still like the idea, and Villa V still really, their way of spending a couple of days in port, it's still something that really interests me. I think if I did do it, which is something I sort of thought at the time, I probably would just want to do like 3.5 year, whatever the circumnavigation is. I don't think I'd probably want to do any more than that. But then, I don't know, after 3.5 years living at sea, it'd be very hard to climatize back to real life and doing everything for yourself. That would be quite a shock, I think, actually. So would I recommend it to others? In general, yes. I mean, it would depend. People who don't like cruising, obviously not. People who have found a, week-long or 10-night long cruise too long, obviously not. Anyone who loves cruising, loves traveling, for a lot of people, we were away 6 weeks. I was actually away from Melbourne for closer to 8 weeks. It's a long time. And, for some people that would be too long. To me, it was fine. I'm glad to be back for a week before we go to China. But, yeah, I'm happy to move around. I'm the sort of person I'd happily, live in a different city for a year, every year. Like I said, that doesn't really bother me. So I think as long as you're adaptable about being away And whilst I am quite a homebody, I'm happy to make my home wherever I am. So that worked well for me. So yeah, overall, I had a great experience and I would do it again. So let me know in the comments below if you've been on a long-term cruise and what you thought of it. Or if you would never do it or you would love to do it, then let me know. And if there's any aspects about the cruise that you'd like to know about, please also add it in the comments below. I can make a video for you about anything that you're interested in. Otherwise, check out my Transpacific cruise playlist for all the videos about the port stops and the ship. I've put up a few and more will be going up as I make them. So I hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, please do like and subscribe. It really does help my channel grow if you can subscribe. I really need to get my subscriber numbers up, so that would be great, and see you next time. Thanks, bye.